Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody out there in the Jira fam. We actually have a really special guest, someone who's I would say is a member of the Jira fam, 100%. You know, has always had the Jira's back and always talked about it. Makes some really good and educational YouTube content, which I think is important. The educational part is, if you guys know anything about me, I'm all about education. I'm done with this whole, hey, look at this, buy this, it'll 10x, boom. You learn nothing from that, and it does not make the space better. Patrick is over here, and he's been gracious enough to carve out a chunk of time for us to come out and educate us on a Genesis project. And I always love when people who have a big following come out here and do a Genesis project instead of being like, oh, here's my 10K collection. Let me get a nice money grab. Looks like Patrick's wanting to start a Genesis of 777 and actually build a real community, a tight knit foundation, and then build off of that. So, hey, Patrick, how's it going?
Yeah,
I talk a lot. I don't want to talk through the whole entire
yeah,
thing, but how's it going, man?
it's going well. Zero cool. I appreciate you guys having me on. I've definitely been following Gojira since the beginning, really, when it was just starting out and nobody really knew what it was. So it's amazing to see you guys growing so much as well, and it's crazy that I'm actually on here now, actually.
Yeah, it's so insane, man. I mean, like like I said, it's like I've watched your content, and then you come out and you're gonna put out a thing here, and then it's always been a nice thing when you guys have you've been a follower and an admirer of the project, and it's always crazy to see
Yeah,
like where it's gone and all this stuff, and like the people that have like actually supported us, and we've actually become like super successful and like a staple here in the
yeah,
industry, and you've
seriously.
you've made your name too, man, like over the YouTube content. So like, how about we just do like a little bit of like an elevator pitch type of thing, like if I was just
Mm.
like wanted to hear about your project, just tell us all the juicy, beautiful, lovely alpha you got for us, man.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make that part short because I think for this interview, people want to know who I am as a person, right? But without like trying to be too salesy, basically the Parallax is a media company, right? So everything I'm doing is focused on media. I know that when you're seeing like anime PFP, you're seeing waifus and husbandos, um, that's cool, and there's a reason why I did that. But at our core, we are a media company, and we're here to create the best high quality production, educational, inspirational content to really put NFTs on the map and really onboard new people into the ecosystem.
That's awesome. Yeah. So like, what I always ask this because this is like really important to me when people are
Mhm.
starting a project. Is there's so many
Mhm.
like cash grabby things out there and all that, like bad
Yeah.
actors and junk like that. What was the
Mhm.
passion behind, like, what kind of like is the drive behind, like, what's getting you going, and like why you were like, I got to do it an NFT collection?
Yeah, dude. So everything I do in my career is really built around one thing, and that's really to inspire others, right? So like even before I started doing NFTs, I was doing education in the sales training space. So like, I was doing pretty good as a salesperson. I created a business on how to teach people that online through online courses. And it's always about inspiration. And the reason is because when I was a kid growing up, I was like people watch my YouTube videos and they think I'm really good at talking and this and that. But actually, when I was a kid, I was the opposite: super shy, not very confident. Um, Literally, my elementary teachers, back in the day, thought I didn't even speak English, so they would put me in the class English as a second language, even though it was my only language that I spoke. So, when you live like that, it's kind of like you know who you want to be on the inside, and you kind of want to express yourself, but you're afraid of that, or I was afraid of that, and I was afraid of what people would think of me if I said the wrong thing. So what happened is over time, there were people that just came into my life, not like as a mentor, but they just like said something or they briefly passed by. And whatever they said inspired me to want to make a change in my life. And with that, it just completely shifted my life for the better. And so when it comes to business and like what I want to do for a living, the best feeling for me is to help someone out and show them that they can do more than they thought possible. And so with the NFT project, it's like, well, really, it's a media company, right? My whole purpose is to create educational content to show people that NFTs are more than what people realize, and in a way that's inspiring for a lot of people because not everybody likes like those random hungry hippos degen plays, right? Some people
Yep.
actually look at this as like some almost like startup investing in a sense, or like or even like an asset class in some ways. And I want to show people the legitimacy of what NFTs could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I think that this kind of
Does that make
stuff.
sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. It's like something that I think that we like need more and more of. Like you were saying, like all these degen plays, they're fun, they're cute. You know, you
Hmm.
make a little money, may lose a little money, but you have a little bit of fun. But it doesn't better the space. It doesn't, help the
Yeah,
space grow. And I think that
yeah,
having projects like what you're talking about doing is like even before your NFT content was out, I was looking back at previous YouTube content. You're trying to
yeah,
educate people, trying to teach people how to get
yeah,
yourself out there and to like promote people. And I think that's just like an amazing thing, honestly. And people kind of like
yeah,
don't look at this education thing as being very sexy and like it's not really like glamorous and cool, and it's not always the biggest amount of money, but there's got to be
yeah,
guys like us, that are like looking out for
yeah.
the other people and trying to do this stuff. So like basically you're trying to center around like a media company. Can you like kind of
Mhm.
explain a little bit more about that? Like so like if I'm a holder, so if I mint your
Mhm.
NFT, what does that like
Yeah.
kind of give me?
Got you, got you. Okay, I think we got to take a step back and like clearly explain what the NFT is for, right?
Yeah,
Because a
absolutely.
lot of people, yeah, it's like most people are like, "What's the utility? What's the utility?" And I think before you get into that, you got to take a step back. When it comes to the NFTs, right? It's like the way I look at it is an NFT is almost a way to raise money in a sense to go after like a vision, right? And then for me, it's to inspire others to create educational content for everybody, actually. And so when people are purchasing an NFT, it's like I think the first thing they should think about to see whether it's a fit for them or not is that do they support the vision, right? So it shouldn't be a relationship where it's like, oh, if I pay you X amount of dollars, what do I get? What do I get? That's not the type of holders I'm looking for. I'm looking for the type of people that understand that the space needs better education. This space needs better actors who are not just here creating casinos for people to gamble on. And then I think that's the first like a mental barrier, I would say, right? And
Mhm.
if people don't like kind of jive with that, then I wouldn't recommend them purchase my NFT because it's not going to be a good fit, right? Because I'm not going to come out with an airdrop next month just to pump the floor price. It's like there's a certain vision. Does that make sense before I move forward?
No, that definitely makes sense. And like what you're saying is like is it unfortunately is like kind of a hard sell because of the way the NFT space has been
Yeah,
like driven. But like yes, no, you're absolutely right. Like it's not like you're gonna be like, hey, invest in my NFT. In a month you'll get something that's gonna be airdropped to you, or you'll get to be able to
yeah,
mutate. It's not like that. It's like you have
yeah,
a
exactly.
vision and you actually have something that you want to like achieve. And I respect that. So like I love hearing about it. Yeah, definitely like, if you
Yeah,
want to elaborate more on it, like I didn't mean
sure.
to jump the gun because I love hearing this stuff. So yeah, go for it.
Sure, sure. And I would also explain that that's why the collection is a limited quantity of 777, right? Like, as a, quote unquote influencer, you can just like right out the gate, just like do a large collection. But we've seen in the past when influencers do that, typically those projects don't really make it that far.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, it's like they create a narrative that gets people to buy, right? And I'm not saying that's wrong or right. I'm just saying that that's what they do. For me, it's kind of like I understand that not everyone's going to agree with the way I do things or what my vision is or how long it will actually take to pull off. That's why I want to keep the supplies low where the right people can come into play. And then we could talk about like the interview process of how people actually get the whitelist, but that's essentially how it goes, right? Now, when it comes to utility of the NFT, there are a couple things actually. So like when we're looking at let's talk about short term and then long term. So in the short term, right, it's actually pretty similar to like let's say what an alpha pass would be, where there's like the alpha in-depth analysis, a lot of whitelist opportunities because as a media company, there are a lot of people like reaching out to us, right? And it's like discounts on different softwares and things like that. So not too different from other alpha passes. But I would say the main utility in my eyes, right, and this is just my personal opinion, is that the community that we bring together because it's like it's not as if I need people to buy this. You know what I mean? It's not as if like I'm like everybody like I'm doing 5,000 supply. Please buy my NFT because I want to make a lot of money upfront. Actually, I take less money upfront by doing lower supply. And the reason is because it's like the process to actually get a whitelist is actually quite lengthy. It's not like you can grind in my Discord. It's like first you have to go into the Discord, then you have to contribute in some way, whether it's usually it's like more on the alpha side or like intellectual like conversations. And then what happens is me or a moderator sees your chat. We look at your chat history to see if what you're saying is of quality, and then we give you a role called Pioneer. And then once you get the Pioneer role, you're going to have to go through an interview with either me or someone on my team. And we ask you questions to understand why you want to be part of the Parallax. What can you contribute? These kind of questions to see if you're actually a good fit. And then if you are a good fit, then you will get the whitelist role, right? And so that kind of just filters out anybody who just goes to every random Discord to like spam GM. It doesn't work because we're literally checking every single chat. And then not only that, but also the other people on my whitelist are also personal connections in the space, where you have different project founders and things like that who want to be part of this as well. So it's like, the strength is really in the community. I would argue that, everything else after community it's important, but without the community, nothing works anyways. So that's kind of like where I sit on that. Does that make sense?
And that makes complete sense. And like without the community, it doesn't really go from, but with the community in your back, you're like unstoppable and you can do some really, really amazing things that like, you couldn't do even though you have like a, YouTube following and all that stuff. But like when you have that
Yeah,
community that supports you, just the same way that you're talking about, you're talking about a different style of whitelist giveaway, where you're
yeah,
doing an interview process, which is actually like really interesting. And it's not like kind
yeah,
of gets rid of that grindy thing and it kind of like promotes a little bit more of like organic feel, which is what like kind of what we need to get back to in the NFT space. Honestly, we're kind of I feel like we're getting away from that. Maybe it's partially the
yeah.
bear market and whatnot, but so like when I noticed that like so you like announced that you were doing an NFT project on June 1st, like what was the thought behind like doing it so it's such like a short notice because it's minting not in too long, like in a week or so, right?
It's not gonna be in a week, probably end of the month. But
Oh, in a month,
well,
okay.
yeah. But here's the thing, man. I've been building my Discord channel for since February, right?
Yeah.
And so we're talking February, March, April, May, June. We're talking about 5 months, right? In the beginning, it's kind of like I wasn't as popular on YouTube at that time. I probably had like 1,000 or 2,000 subscribers, probably like 2,000 Twitter followers, and so it grew slowly for sure, right? And over since the beginning, I've been giving people pioneer roles, for the last 5 months,
And
right?
yeah, and they
Yeah,
didn't know
right.
what that was for, right?
Oh, before honestly, it was like in the beginning when there was like 50 people, they're like, "Oh, yo, Patrick, you got to do an OG role," and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what kind of OG role you want?" And they're like, just like for the OGs, and I'm like, "All right, I'll just call it a pioneer." So that's how it started, and
That's
then
funny.
over time, it's like I was like, "Oh, actually, what we'll do is we'll create a separate channel for pioneers because those are the ones that contribute more." And then instead of being just like first, it's like you actually contribute. And then from there, I was like, well, I don't think every pioneer deserves a whitelist role because some people are inactive sometimes, and maybe they got it because they were early, right? And so then we create the other interview step to get to the whitelist side. So it's not as if the community was built in the past month. It was actually built over the past 5 months. It's just only recently that we started doing whitelist giveaways on Twitter, where people were kind of like put on the map in a sense, right? Which is a good and bad thing, and I can explain why that in a second. But yeah, so from the outside looking in, it looks like it just came out of nowhere. But actually, we already had like hundreds of pioneers like ready to go.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I hope I didn't come off as being like, oh, you just decided to pop out there. Like I knew
Oh
that.
yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's all
looked at
good.
your Discord and I love that because it's like you're not like asking people to buy something, but you're like providing
Mhm.
all this value. I was looking, you're like, there's like even alpha calling in there, there's people helping
Yeah,
each other out. There's,
yeah, it's
that and
whitelist too for
yeah,
free.
yeah, whitelist for free, and I know that you get a decent amount because you do YouTube content. So usually, you can
Yeah,
like do like an AMA on there and get some more spots for your community, which
yeah,
is great. You're already providing, value like to just the
yeah,
supporters, not even holders. It's the
yeah. Just
supporters the
support
whole
us.
time. Saw you had an NFT nerds, discount and all that good stuff that most people don't even get until like well after they've minted, and then they provide stuff like
Yeah,
that. So like I respect
yeah,
the hell out of that, man. But yeah, like I mean, I love listening to you talk about the project. If you want to just like keep going more in depth or like focus on some more aspects of it, we
yeah.
have
Sure, sure,
we have
sure.
a couple questions in chat, but I'd love to hear more from you because like
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
You get how these AMAs go, so like you know how to roll.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. So I'll say like one unique factor that maybe not a lot of projects have, right? So for what we're doing, we're a media company, and for me, I plan to do or to be something like a Business Insider, a Forbes, or maybe like a Hypebeast.com or a Complex magazine, right? Where it's like you're literally like what you do is creating content. So what I want to do in the future is because we create content as a media company, in the web too, there's a lot of ways media companies can monetize. They can create products, they can run advertisements, they can do special, certain things, special events with certain brands that want their attention from their audience. So it's like when I look at an NFT project, I always look at, okay, in the future, maybe not now, but how are they going to make money outside of selling more NFTs and royalties, right? Because that can't just be it. There's got to be something more. And my whole angle is that, yeah, I'm gonna be a media company, and there's a million ways media companies can monetize. So like, I actually don't have to worry as long as I have the trust and the attention. Now, what I want to do for Genesis holders is that the people that are supporting in the beginning, like right now we have like 14, 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. So it's like, okay, what would it be like if you bought a Genesis collection from a media company that at the time only had like 15K subs on YouTube, but maybe one day, they're going to have like 300,000, right? And then from there, it's like, okay, when we get to that point, how can we reward holders who basically supported us in the beginning? And so with working with different brands, different revenue streams that come in, I'm not going to say exactly what the best way to reward holders are, but you can bet that as we as a company become more successful, we will definitely find ways to reward the holders. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, like, the whole idea behind it is awesome, and I feel like, if other people were coming under, like, I had a couple AMAs with some other projects that were talking about like a media side and trying to do that, but the one problem with that is that they didn't have like the YouTube side where like you already have like this
Yeah.
content and you already have this following going down, and so it's easier for you to promote, like you were saying. And I think it's like really cool. It's
Yeah.
like it's amazing stuff, honestly. But yeah, I mean, if you want to just keep on touching on stuff, like I'll ask you stuff about the
Sure.
art, because I feel like a lot of people like
Okay.
really
Yeah. We
love
should
the
talk about the
art.
art.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
to like jump out of that. I just get excited during the AMAs and just love learning about this, and
Uh-huh.
want to make sure everyone in the Gajira fam is learning all about this, because I'm super
Mhm.
excited about it. And that's my whole thing, is people like, my passion and my excitement always pours through on the mic, and I can't help myself. So yeah, just keep on going with it. If you want to touch on the art, like,
Yeah,
I
sure.
know
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
very cool
yeah.
stuff, man.
The art is actually pretty important. So like, if you look at my Twitter and things like that, you see like this, this crazy anime art, right? And a lot of people might be wondering, like, okay, well, if you're trying to be a media company, why are you doing, anime art? Which is quite interesting, right? And for me, I learned this from this guy Naval Ravikant, who's like this like prolific investor. But he wrote in a book that he said, you gotta keep redefining what you do until you're the best at what you do, right? Which is very important, because in this space there's so many copycats. Like you come out with something, the next guy will copy you, and next thing you know, everybody has like the same thing. And I wanted to do something where it would be very, very, very difficult for people to copy. So if you're a media company, what media company is going to do an anime PFP? Pretty much nobody,
Yeah,
right?
it's a good
They're not
point.
even thinking about that. Yeah, they'll be like, oh, let's just do a 3D spinning card and just sell that 5,000 of these to everybody, right?
Yeah.
And that's cool. I mean, you can have a model on that. I'm not hating on that. I'm just saying that, the thing with that is nobody can use it as a PFP. Nobody can proudly represent it. And then with a PFP, like, with Gojira, like for example, there's so much emotional attachment to having that, right? Like you see another Gojira, you're like, yo, you're part of the crew. I was like, okay, why not the Parallax have that as well, right? Because you can create the same feeling. And when you have people just so emotionally invested in the brand and like supporting the movement, it just becomes so much stronger.
Yeah.
And why? Okay, you want me to keep going?
Yeah, yeah, hell
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Hell
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
baby,
Okay,
keep
sure,
going,
sure.
man.
Yeah. All right. So why I chose anime was because first I'm a big fan of anime. Like I watch all different animes and stuff. Like Hunter x Hunter is
Hey,
probably one of my favorites.
okay, I was just about to say,
Uh,
what's your favorite? And you just dropped it
yeah,
out there.
yeah, yeah,
Hey, Hunter's
yeah.
coming
So
back, you see that?
yeah, I
Yeah,
saw that. It's
baby! Woo!
crazy.
Okay, cool. All right,
Let's go.
continue. Sorry to interrupt.
So
That's a
okay,
big
yeah,
deal,
no worries, no
actually.
worries. Yeah, dude, people have been waiting years for that.
Dude, years.
So yeah, okay. So with the anime thing, it's like I was, for me, I'm like one of those like entrepreneurs that thinks, what do I want the world to look like, or what do I think is missing from the world, and how can I just create that? And for me, there was like other anime PFPs that were cool, but I felt like there was a certain style that wasn't represented in terms of like different kind of anime art. So I was like, okay, I'll just be the one to create it. And for the art that you see on Twitter and stuff, I'm actually the like creative director slash art director for it. So like how it looks, how it feels, the proportions, the colors, traits, everything like that. I'm pretty much doing. And then I'm working with an artist in Japan who's like a legit like anime manga artist, and then he's helping make this vision come to life. So what I did was I asked my community in Discord, and I just asked them like, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about doing like some kind of pass or something like that. Would it be cool if we did anime?" And overwhelmingly, everybody said yes. I would say like maybe probably 95% of people said yes. So I was like, okay, my community loves anime. I love anime. At this point, anime is like almost mainstream, where like some of the top NFTs are anime influenced, like Clone X and Azuki.
Yep.
So I was like, if I do an anime project, I don't think it would limit me. Actually, I think that the people who like those kind of PFPs like a Azuki or a Clone X, they are going to gravitate to the Parallax because it kind of hits a similar vein. And it's different as well, right? Because when people look at it, they're going to be like, "Oh, what? Patrick's this influencer and he's really trying to build a media company. Oh, what? His anime art is actually better than a majority of
Yeah.
anime metaverse plays, right?" And I know like where these guys get their artists and stuff because it's like, I looked around and shopped around like different places, and I have a pretty idea of like where they get it. And it's not that well, like they're not finding the best talent. So I was just like, okay, if I do anime, I think I have a shot of making something special if I really put the time and energy into it. And once I do this, I only have to do it one time. After I create it, it's done, right? So I was like, all right, if I think of myself as a multi-year brand, let's say 5, 10 year brand, why not just go super hard on the picture that's going to represent your community, because that's going to last for you forever. And so that was my thought process behind it. Like, if I didn't do the anime project, like with the PFP, I could have launched in like March, but
Yeah.
because I wanted to make it special, I literally spent months doing the art while growing my YouTube following, while doing the community stuff on Discord, just so that when I put it out, people could feel proud to purchase a Parallax NFT, and that was really important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, like, can you touch a little bit? So, I remember listening in on the AMA on, I think it was June 1st when you were talking about it. You had kind of a little bit of a story. So it's like, and actually, the artist that's doing it is from Japan, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And like, didn't you you were like saying a story about how you like, it has like in Japan there's a negative stigma with like
Oh
NFTs
yeah,
projects. So like, you
yeah,
kind
for
you said
sure.
that you like messaged like a ton of people and were trying, and it was not easy to get, like, so that's what you're kind of like alluding to.
Yeah,
It was not easy to get an artist that actually like you felt like was going to embody what you wanted to do, which is, I think, is really cool that you didn't just settle for anything. And
yeah.
but yeah, it's crazy how difficult it was. And I didn't even know that stuff until you were talking about it on that Spaces, I believe it was.
Yeah, yeah. That's just the culture with NFTs right now. Like I said, like NFTs kind of has a bad reputation outside our little bubble, right? Where people think it's like a Ponzi scheme and scams, which technically they're not wrong, right? Because
No, you're right.
99, right? You're not wrong. 99% of the stuff going to zero anyways. So they're not wrong. But they have a negative reputation. And if you're an artist, like you have a brand to keep, right? Like if you're the one, doing anime art for a cash grab, then it's like other legit Web2 brands aren't going to want to work with you, right?
Yeah.
And so the artist I found, like, he's never done like, like NFT, like PFP kind of stuff. And, he was a little hesitant at first. And I think because, I had a YouTube channel, he felt a little more trusting. He was like, all right, let's just do it. And
Okay.
yeah, we've been working with him since.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was a funny thing when you were talking about. You're just like, yeah, I don't speak Japanese, so like, going through, like, talking to him through text is like easier because you're just having everything translated, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the trick is really like, it's your ability to creative direct, right? So like,
Mhm.
you can't just type text to somebody and expect them to know what to create. When it comes to the art, like I'm very like hands-on when it comes to, for example, how big the eyes should be, how big the boobs should be, where should the weapon sit? You know what I mean? Like it sounds silly, but they're actually very important decisions, right? Like for example, if the boobs on an anime project are too big, then people will think it's a waifu project. And then, if you look in the history of waifu projects, they all eventually go down, right? So it's like, those are really small decisions that actually influence the perception of what people look at your brand as. So for me, with the anime stuff, it's kind of like, obviously I want to make it attractive and sexy and like people can like it, but at the same time, could you make it a little bit more classy where people don't think of it as cheap? And it's a balance, right? And that's something that you cannot necessarily rely on just an artist to do. It's a job of a creative director to decide those things because they have to look at it from the perspective of the audience, whereas an artist may just be really good at drawing, but they're not sure who the audience is, right? So those are just some things that I learned along the way.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just cool. I mean, it just really shows your passion for like what you're doing. It's like, it's not a PFP project, but you're putting so much, thought and care
Yeah.
behind the PFP because you get it. You understand like, NFT projects, if you don't have a PFP, if you don't have a way to represent it, then people don't see it like outside and like you're saying like
Yeah.
I go into a server and someone sees my Genesis Jira and they immediately say, "Hey, nice Jira." That's
Yeah.
literally what
Yeah.
people are paying for. That's what people want, and you want to be
Yes.
recognized. And like,
Yes.
why would someone buy a Toyota and it'll drive from point A to point B the exact same way a Lamborghini does? It's because they want to be seen
Yeah.
in the Lamborghini. So like, I think it's really smart that you did that. That's always a difficult thing with like alpha passes, even though you're getting so much utility from like alpha calls and education
Yeah.
and information. People still want to represent that NFT,
Yep.
and I think that's smart. And it's like crazy how much thought you're going into it, even though it's not even the main focus of the
Yeah.
NFT. So,
Yeah. That's
props to
funny.
that.
That's funny you say that because it's like I remember I remember I had a tweet. I said, good art is a utility.
Yeah.
And I still stick by that, right?
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's like these are collectibles that you use to like represent who you are on the internet. And having good art is like it shows taste. Like when you like, for example, when someone has a Azuki, there's a certain it's like they represent something. You know what I mean? So with the Parallax, when they have that, I want them to represent something versus just a pass. Otherwise, you know, I think what happens with a lot of passes is they become commoditized, right? Like I said, I had another tweet. I was like, you can be Nike or you can be Skechers. So like if you think about it, they're both shoes.
Hmm.
You wear them, you walk to different places and you run. But like when you wear Nike, there's a certain status that you have from wearing Nike. And when you have Skechers, people look at you a certain way, right? Um, and at the end of the day, if you think about business like overall, not just Web3, but in general, everything actually eventually becomes commoditized. Like literally everything, right? Like Nike literally sells you commodities, but because they put a logo on it, they can charge you like 10 times more for it,
Yeah.
or maybe more than 10 times, right? So like, because everybody can copy you anyways. So with all these passes and stuff, what is it usually? It's like they have an alpha caller, they get the whitelist, and then it becomes like a whitelist farm, and then it's like okay, whatever, right? And it's like okay, and then that's it. That's just what it is. But then if you have an NFT, it's like you can even survive even if there was no whitelist. I always think about that all the time. I think if my project never gave out any whitelist, can I survive? The answer is yes, I can because of the culture that I built, the community I built. Literally anything we do, like there's a community that will support it. Whereas for other projects, if they had no whitelist, I'm pretty sure they're dead. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to be negative or anything, but it's just like that's the nature of the game when everybody copies each other, right? And so that's why I'm always like a big proponent. If you're especially if you're listening to this and you want to start a project, you got to keep redefining what you do until you're the best at what you do because it pays off to be number one, even if you're in a small category. So that's just some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point because it's like, if we're not redefining and people are copying, then everyone's just going to be the same, and then the space is not going to be sustainable, and it's just going to
Yeah.
implode on itself because, anything that's just like a derivative, which like a derivative doesn't have to be like the same kind of art. It can be just like a direct copy of like everything that the vision of that NFT is. And when all the visions are just aligning into the same thing and they're not going in different directions, trying to push the space to better the space, then we ain't gonna be around too much longer doing this thing. And I think that
Yeah.
when people only like thrive and they only need whitelist and like we're going through a meta right now where whitelist is really not even that it doesn't hold the value it
Yes.
used to.
Yeah. Yes.
I
Things
mean
are flopping right after mid.
to be honest, it's like investing in a degen play, going for a whitelist. Like there's like it's a dice roll. You don't know if that thing's gonna get it, and sometimes the most random shit ever is what's actually like doing really well.
Yeah.
So like like you're saying, it's
Yeah.
like if you can't sustain without like these certain like derivative utilities, then like yeah, then you're just not gonna be able to make it. And I mean, I do like keep on saying, I keep on harping on. I think that you've like got a really good idea and you've got like the right passion. And like when you ask yourself like legitimately unbiased,
Hmm.
like, hey, would I survive if I wasn't giving away whitelist to my community? And you're
Yeah.
thinking about like what you've already built, and you've already been building for you say 4 or 5 months, like the community and your
Yeah.
your Discord. So I mean, you've already done like what you need to do. You've created like the tight knit community. And I mean, now you might as well release the past. And I love that you're doing the Genesis. Is there anything else that you want? I can start taking some questions from the
Mhm.
listeners out there. Unless you want to like talk about some more things. I talk too much, so I try to like give people everyone else a chance.
No, 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 no worries. That's all good. I mean, we pretty much covered like the main gist of it. It would be great to hear people's questions and I can answer them directly and maybe spark some new ideas.
Yeah, yeah. So this one person was talking about how there's a lot of alpha groups and a lot of Web3 education groups. What's something that you're going to be able to do to stand out in the long term? And like the second part of this question you already asked about the vision, and we've already talked about that. But he's just curious how you're going to compete with the other like or not. Maybe a better way of saying it is like how are you not going to get lumped in as like a just like an alpha group or something like that because sometimes you
Yeah.
can't it can't happen whether you're trying to do that or not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got you, got you. All right. So the first off is the art, right? Like I said before, utility. Art is a utility. So like when somebody buys a Parallax NFT and they love the art and they just really deeply connected with it, let's say we all have the same alpha, whatever, right? If the art is better in one and the other one is just a 3D spinning card, which one would you pick? Probably the art that you connect with, right?
Hmm.
So in that situation, if everyone did copy me, then I would actually be at an advantage because there's something that they actually can't copy. They could copy the art, but I don't think they're going to go through the pain of creating something original that can actually stand pretty strong against other anime PFPs. Now, the other thing is like when I look at competition, honestly, I don't even look at competition. It's kind of like when I do YouTube, right? There's a bunch of people doing NFT content on YouTube, and there's a couple I watch, but for the most part, I don't really watch anybody else. And the reason is not because they're competition. The reason is because I don't feel like I learn a lot from these videos. So it's like it's kind of like I kind of play in a world where I don't even need to look at competition because people aren't thinking, oh, should I buy a Parallax or should I buy this random alpha pass? It's either, the people in my community so far that, the ones that I interviewed and the ones I talked to, they want to buy a Parallax because they want to buy a Parallax. They're not shopping around, comparing it to the next thing. They're not shopping around to see what's the cheapest. It's kind of like if you want to buy a Rolex, you want to buy a Rolex. I'm not saying that I'm trying to be a luxury brand or anything, but then it's just like, that branding perspective of like you know what you want and that's what you're going to get, right? And so with my audience, it's like with my content, like for me, I try to be as honest as possible. I try to create the highest education quality as possible, and when people watch that, they respect it. And when they respect it, it's like they don't need to shop around because they feel like they can trust me already, right? And then when they look at some of the stuff I've been tweeting, it's not like the things that I say on Twitter is not, I'm always trying to propose thoughts. I'm always trying to give people different perspectives. I'm not just, sharing what I ate for lunch or something like that. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but like it's different. It's different. And I think the people that resonate with me, they really do resonate with me. And, they just vibe with the community, right? And even if the alpha, which is a commodity, is the same, right? Because, there's people that sit in like a million different alpha channels and they just collect everything and they put it in theirs, right? Which is fine. It's not about the alpha. It's about the community, who you're with, right? And a lot of people, honestly, they want to get into the Parallax because they see what I'm doing. They feel like I'm doing it in a very authentic and honest way, and they want to be a part of it. And when I do it like that, who am I competing against?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, competition, breeds innovation, but also, this whole thing of where you're like, some people get too wrapped up, I think, in trying to be better than XYZ project, and
Hmm.
it kind of hinders their project in a way.
Yeah,
And so, like, I
yeah,
definitely think that's like it's an interesting thing to think about, just like the way that all works. But I mean, I watch a lot of the YouTube content, and your content is definitely, in my opinion, edited and produced in a different way, and it's much more enjoyable, than other
yeah,
people's the style it's done in. So it's like, I think that you've hit it on there, and you've been building this like really good tight knit community. I think that you're gonna, as far as that goes, is it's something that you're always gonna have competition. It's always gonna be a thing. But I think that
yeah,
where you've like kind of set yourself up with building for 4 or 5 months. See, I didn't even know that. I was kind of
yeah.
thinking, I was like, Not because I don't know you. We haven't even had a chance to chat. We've been talking
Like,
back and
yeah,
forth on
yeah, yeah,
Twitter and whatnot. We haven't had a chance to just have like a VC and talk. But like, it's one of those things. I was
yeah,
like sitting there thinking. I was like, man, it's like Patrick's like he like said he announced his NFT and then he's like minting it like 3 weeks, maybe a month later. Like, what's up with that? And then now here I am
yeah,
learning. It's like it's like it's one of those things. So it's good stuff in there. I'm gonna go ahead and
yeah.
snipe a couple more of these questions in here.
Yeah, but real quick before you jump in that question, one thing I'll
Yeah.
say is, even when it comes to like YouTube production, right? Like when I started doing YouTube in December for NFTs, and I had a YouTube channel before that, so that's why I had all the skills to do YouTube. When I looked at the NFT content back then, it was just like people on their webcam, just like, "Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the NFT markets," and it's like, all right, it's not that interesting, right? And so I want to give it a different spin. I don't mean to make fun of anybody. It's just like it's just funny. But I want to give it a different spin to make it more entertaining and educational. And then now it's like if you look at different YouTube channels, you'll find that they just pretty much like try to rip off the style that I created, right? And that's all right. Like how I do the music, how I do the zoom in and zoom out, how I do the text. Like they people pretty much like copy at this point. And I remember I had a tweet. I said like, it's okay if you copy my style because nothing really is original. But I hope you copy my honesty. And I really meant that because it's like a lot of times in this space, it's like it's pretty dark when you understand like what goes on behind the scenes. And it's like when people are promoting certain projects, like you're watching a video, you know for sure like this project is not good, but this person is like for some reason saying that it is. And you're in the space and I'm in the space, you kind of know what's going on behind the scenes. It's like, yeah, they're getting paid in some capacity, whether it's whitelist or Ethereum. And it's like people can copy me, they can try, but then I think they're gonna have trouble copying my honesty because I keep it real as possible. And it's like if you're the type of person that won't keep it honest, and it's like people aren't even comparing. It's not even the same ballpark.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And also means another thing, like, and I have this issue with my girlfriend. She does art, and she'll like do stuff, use a filter or something like that, and like she'll be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this blah blah blah," just blatantly copy me, and I'm like, that means you're doing it right. That means you're doing something
Mm,
so right that they can't improve upon it, that they have to use it. And like I try to
yeah.
tell her that, and to try to get her off this like mindset of being like, oh, she copied me, and I'm like, no, don't look at it that way. Like that's an honor. It's like the highest form of
Yeah.
honor you possibly can when people are copying you. It's like the best for
Yeah.
sure. And
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah.
like you're saying, it's like the honesty thing, man. Like that's you got to touch on that, because like if like these guys out there, it's if people don't understand, like when you're influencing, you have lots of Twitter followers or YouTube subscribers and whatnot, people give you whitelist spots because of that. And a lot of times
Yeah.
people, like the actual content creator, will take those whitelist spots and they
Hmm.
will put it under burner wallets for themselves for hyped up projects, and not even give back to their community and act like they are,
Mm, mm,
and
mm,
so like when
mm.
he's saying
Yeah.
like copy his honesty, it's like there's a whole like several layers of this whole thing going down.
Yeah.
And I can
A
look in
lot of
your
layers.
I mean, I can look in your server and I can see that you're giving away spots and like actually doing it. So like, I mean, I think it's a really interesting thing when you said that the honesty thing, like that's definitely touches on something that I've been like thinking about a lot, because it's kind of a bit frustrating. Sometimes people take advantage of this, and it's one of those things that's going
Yeah.
to hinder the NFT space just as much
Honestly,
as all that.
honestly, dude, when I started learning about like what goes behind the scenes, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was like, really? Like, why? Why would you do that? You're already making so much money. Why do you need
I
to?
yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. But I mean, that's another topic. But yeah, anyways.
Let's get some more questions in here. We can have a
Yeah,
chat about that another time. If you
sure,
know
sure.
Joma Opa on YouTube, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing
Yeah,
that
yeah,
correctly. He created an
yeah. I know.
NFT called Vax Doggos, so the
Yep,
NFT
yep,
owners can give inputs on how the content for Joma will be, and all of the
yep.
NFT fund will go to his YouTube productions. Are you going to do something the same way as this for Parallax?
Not exactly. So with Joma, I mean, he's pretty clear on what he's offering his audience, right? He's basically just saying, hey, I'm a YouTuber. I don't want to take advertisement money so that I can make my content as high quality as possible. So this is a way to fund that, right? And that's great, right? Because people that support him will want to do it. The way I think how Joma did it is more like something more like it's almost like a Patreon, but an NFT form. It's kind of like you help support the channel. You can give some input here and there, but really in the end, that I'm just gonna do what I want and I'm gonna hear what you're saying. That's pretty much what it is, right? And that's okay, because he's honest about what it is. With the what's it called? Vax Doggles, is that what it is?
Yeah,
For
Vox Doggos, I
Vax
think.
Yeah, something like that. Well, with this project, it's like he's not trying to he's not trying to change everybody's PFP to a Vax toggle. You know what I mean? So it's not like he's not really trying to be a PFP project in a sense. It's more as a mechanism to fund his YouTube videos. Where the Parallax is different is number one, I don't really consider the Parallax as a just a YouTube, and I don't consider myself like just a YouTuber. I consider myself a media company, right? Similar to what like Complex or Hypebeast is. So that's a little different. And then the other thing is like um, with the PFP and stuff, I'm trying to get it to be like a PFP that people can represent and actually build a community around it. You know, whereas let's say maybe another project where it's just like funding, people don't really care whether or not they use it as a PFP. You know what I mean? So there's like there's less of a culture there,
Yeah.
and it's not so deep into the NFT world. You know?
And then the second part of his question was just ask about the strategy
Hmm.
with the funds that you get from the
Yeah, yeah,
Parallax
sure, sure.
NFT,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how you can
yeah.
how you're
So
going to use it to make a stronger community and bigger future for the Parallax.
yeah, I gotcha. Okay, so the funds, the main use of the funds for me is gonna be to continue to create high quality content, right? Because what I've realized is that for NFTs and crypto, the greatest currency there actually is attention. As long as you have the attention, there's a million different ways to monetize. So for me, I go for more of a longer term view of things where my goal is to build a brand where people can recognize it, they can trust it, and it captures a lot of attention. Now, when you're doing that, there's not necessarily a bunch of immediate benefits to building a long-term brand. I totally understand that, but that's why I want to make it clear that that's where a lot of the funds will go into hiring more people creating content, whether that's video editors, whether that's people who are doing analysis, people that are doing email newsletters, for example, or even blogs if we start to do a website in the future. But it's going to be towards content. So it's not going to be like an immediate benefit of like, oh, like you're using the funds to create content, but what do I get? I think people have to understand that you're not like getting an immediate benefit. But if we do become one of the biggest players in the NFT space when it comes to news and education, then there will be brands that will want to work with us. There will be people that want our to use our attention for their projects, for example. And then that's where those rewards will come in. So there definitely are rewards, but again, it takes a while to build a brand. And like, if you're interested in like, getting more involved in the Parallax, you definitely need to understand that you cannot expect, the floor price to like triple next week, get an airdrop, and then get a token, because I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in building a media brand. Does that make sense? Zero, you there?
Sorry, I muted
Uh,
because I was typing and I didn't want it to like kind of spill over into you.
oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
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 no, I was saying yeah, it does make sense, and I think it's like something that like a lot of projects like they forget to touch on until like later on, and it's worrying about the brand. And I think that the brand is the most important thing about a project, and it's something that should not be overlooked ever when you're doing a project, because once you brand yourself, such as like a Zuki, they,
yeah,
like most of the time they don't call it an anime derivative, it's an Azuki derivative. And like when you have achieved that, that kind of stature, like type of thing,
yeah,
like Bored Ape, like is a brand, like people know it like outside. It's just like, yeah, I mean, it's smart to like the to be already be thinking about it, and you've already been creating a brand, like you already have such a, like a leg up than most people. So I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's like it's
yeah,
good job answering that question though, like for sure, because it's definitely
yeah,
something that like I think transparency and all that stuff is something that's like it's gonna run like much more. It's gonna be like much more apparent that like you're gonna have to be transparent and talk about like where everything is going, because I think that's the biggest issue with some of these projects,
yeah.
like where funds are going and
Yeah,
X.
yeah, fair enough, fair
Yeah,
enough. Yeah,
absolutely.
because no, dude, project owners like take all of it, right? So I understand it. For me, it's like this. I've been like paying four full-time people and moderators on top of that to create this content and do this thing, like just self-funding for my Web2 business. Because I used to do I still do it actually, sales training online and stuff like that, right? Through online courses. So it's like for me, it's I can't keep self-funding it because I can because I already have a business in Web2, but like it's really a way for me to like relieve some pressure in a sense of like where you know it's funding for a startup essentially, right? That's kind of how I look at it. And then I see another question by Dr. Warhead. He said, as a media company with many ways to monetize, will holders get benefits on the monetary side in any way? And I think I gotta make this clear because I think a lot of people, they think that as a holder they should get like a dividend or something like that, but I don't think legally things can work like that for an NFT. And so there definitely have to be like some kind of workarounds. But I can say that it's not going to be like, oh, like we make X amount of dollars, you get this percentage. I think that would require a whole different legal structure, because my company is going to be based in the US. But like there will be ways holders will get rewarded, not in dividends, but it'll be something like there'll be different ways to do it. You know, there are definitely different ways to do it when you collaborate with different brands. And also, it's like there are other ways to use the funds that will directly reward holders in different ways, right? Like for example, you know, Azuki is spending X amount of millions on a party NFT NYC, right? For a lot of people, that's worth it for them, you know. So there are different ways to reward. I'm not saying that I'm going to throw $1 million party or anything, but I'm just saying that there are different ways to reward holders, and we can figure it out as we move forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's see. I think that he was at Dr. Warhead also was asking about, are you gonna make anything that you right now that's accessible for everyone? You know, kind of like alpha groups will like get people in and they'll give you all the calls and then they'll mint the NFT and then things will become exclusive just to holders. Like, what kind of content, as far as like spaces, and is any of your YouTube content or anything that any of that stuff gonna be gated behind your NFT?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's my philosophy on that. The way I look at content is that you should actually be giving your best stuff for free. So I know this sounds contradictory to everybody because they're like, wait a minute, you know, shouldn't you like put it behind a paywall? Personally, no, I don't think so. Because if you're a media company, your goal is actually just to get the most amount of attention and build the biggest brand, right? It's kind of like what Gary Vee does. Like he basically gives his best advice for free on the internet and he doesn't ask for anything in return. And as a result, he's got the biggest brand and he's able to launch VFriends and like be like one of the largest NFT projects. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that's how I look at it. Like I'm always going to give my best stuff for free. Now, when it comes to the community side, there are different experiences that we can create within education. Like for example, if there was like I don't know, I'm just like throwing a random example off the top of my head, right? Like what if there was like a really prolific trader that was like very shadowy and there's not many interviews about him. What if we brought him on where only our holders can have a conversation with like what this guy's thinking, right?
Yeah.
That's valuable. And he wouldn't want to do that in the public anyways, right? And then could we use some of our funds to compensate him for his time, for example? So there are different ways to spin it, but I would say like for the holders, I want to focus on creating experiences because at the end of the day, commodity like information is a commodity, right? Like anybody can get it, anybody can Google something. The difference of why someone would pay more money for an education is because like it's like going to university, right? It's not because of what's in the book, because anyone can buy the book. It's that they get to have an experience with a certain demographic, and basically grow from being surrounded with a certain type of community. And so I'm taking that approach where I'm going to give my best stuff for free all the time. And what's going to happen is that all these alpha groups and stuff, it's like they're going to be like, why is Patrick giving everything away for free, right? And that's actually better for the space. And then we can focus on experiences where we give you more.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you're saying with like, bringing in another trader or something, I think that's what people like really, really want. They would like to pick the brains because like oftentimes when I do VCs in here and I'm on spaces and whatnot, it's like people just want to like hear what like your story is and like hear like about what's going like what you've done and how your style of trading, and
Hmm.
even just hearing like where you've come from. I think that's you're talking about inspiration, and I think one of the biggest inspirations is when people hear about the backstory of like how you got into the NFT space and like what you used to do. I used to be a carpenter, and then
Oh,
like
wow. Really?
the pandemic hit, and then I studied to become a front end developer, and then I just kind of one of my real life friends was like, hey, check out this Instagram influencer, and then all of a sudden I was dove headfirst into NFTs, and here I do it full time,
Yeah.
every single
Crazy.
day, 7 days a week.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But that,
Carpenter to NFTs, huh?
well, that's like that. So that's what I was saying. Is like when you were saying inspiration, there's so many forms of inspiration that are out there, and some are kind of like so obvious that you look past it. And like one of the ones that people love to hear is like I was saying is telling them the story like of what I used to do, and like here I am, and that kind of like lets people know it's like, wait a second, anyone can do this. Like I can do this. Like it's
Yeah.
and so like
Yeah.
it's always been a
For
good thing.
real.
And I to bounce off of what I was saying is that like when you bring in traders like someone like Pranksy or people like that you would love to hear, like they're like so infamous but you know nothing about. I mean, Takoa is
Yeah.
actually one of those. Like, I never heard him ever talk or speak or anything like that. And I had a voice
Yeah.
chat with
Yeah.
him not too long ago for Degenheim, and I was a completely different person than I thought he was gonna be. He was like so nice and like
Yeah.
so like appreciative and passionate, and
Yeah.
I was just thinking he's just like some pump and dump influencer, and I haven't told him that. But when and it's an amazing when you meet a person, you really
It's
get to
different.
know how they are.
Yeah.
It's completely different, and
It's
I
different. Yeah.
appreciate that, and I think that that will add value to. And I think that you're going to come up with some creative ways to add some value because
Yeah.
there's a lot more ways to provide value than to that things that cost ETH. I try to tell in
Yeah.
Gojira and all these projects. Sometimes it's the little things like sitting in chat and being accessible. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
oh my god, Patrick messaged me today and said I was, like he really appreciates me being a part of it. Like it sounds funny, but it's like actually like that stuff
It's
goes a
important.
long
Yeah.
way. Like I've been doing that in Gajira here, just like because we're in a bear market and we got delisted and it's kind of like times are rough and like there's people that are still just vibing in chat and I've been messaging them and hanging out with them and just letting them know like I appreciate it and like that stuff's free and it's like what people like founders and teams should be doing more of. It's like more get back to the roots of like the personal side. The community is everything. I mean, without the community, you don't have your NFT project. It's not rocket
Yeah.
science. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
but
I got you. Actually, I see another question that's actually interesting to me. He's Kepin. He said another question is wait no, sorry, that's not the one. It was the one about wait, are you warning people like wait no. Well, it was the one about like people buying on the secondary market. Oh yeah. It's not Kepin. Capo CH is considering the vetting for the whitelist spots. Won't this all be watered down as soon as the NFT hits the open market, since you have no control over who buys the NFT? All right, actually, that's so interesting you brought it up because I was thinking about it yesterday. So so we're doing this interview process, right? And let's say we interview like hundreds of people, then hundreds of people get the whitelist through this way, right? So the people that we rejected, couldn't they just buy the NFT on the secondary market after the mint? And that's true. They could actually buy the NFT. So I think there's a couple ways to look at it, right? Like because we went through the interview process, and then because also a large number, not really that large, but like a good percentage of them are also like my friends who are like founders and stuff. Those people aren't going to sell because they don't need to sell, right? It's not about the money for them. So then you already have like a certain percentage of the holders who like pretty much won't sell, right? And then obviously there will be people that will sell because maybe it's a lot of money for them, and I totally respect that. It's fine. People can buy in the secondary market, right? I would kind of look at it in a different perspective. Where would you say that if Azuki you can buy an Azuki on the secondary market, doesn't that water down the community? Or literally anybody. If somebody buys a Gojira Gen 2 on OpenSea, or well, maybe not OpenSea, but sorry, but Looksrare or whatever, will that dilute the collection? And I think every community kind of has that question. But I feel like by the time you have a core community, which I've built over the past few months, I think the right people will cycle in, and the wrong people will cycle out. And I think that's just the nature of the game. So you can't control whether or not someone wants to spend money to buy your project, which is okay. But I think at the end, it's really just a fit, right? So I think culture is the thing that will hopefully keep the community intact.
yeah, I mean, it's a very good question. It's something definitely to think about, and I think that, yeah, you're absolutely right with that. Let's see, there's another question there that's talking about rewarding people for creating content for you and for Parallax. Like, are you gonna try to
Yeah,
expand, like, are you gonna ask
yeah,
because like Rich Dad Poor Dad is like a thing, and they have like a sub like categories and different things that they like push content out. So, with this, are
yeah,
you gonna be like trying to like put out more content and potentially empowering the community?
yeah, yeah. So this is actually like future plan stuff, right? And what I'm saying, like, it could change in the future because we don't know how NFTs will go. But how I was thinking about it is like, what if the parallax, like I never intended the parallax to be about Patrick Dang. That's why I call it the parallax and not like Patrick
Yeah.
Dang NFT, right? Because I know that if I want to build a larger brand, it can't just be me. It's got to be other people, other personalities on the channel or on different, communicating in different ways, not just YouTube. Where it's not just one person, right? So I had always planned that. In the future, and right now it's a little soon, but in the future, ideally in a dream scenario, we can have different people come on. Like, let's say we want to do like NFT TikTok, right? well, it doesn't necessarily have to be Patrick Day. It could be different people who are really good at what they do. We vet them out. We help them with the content, make sure everything is right, and then they help us make the content, right? And obviously, there's going to be like compensation for that, right? They're not going to be doing it for free. But yeah, there's different ways I want to reward people, whether it's like creating analysis, creating content, creating education, all that stuff. That's I think that's the future where it's almost like it's I don't know how to explain it. It's like an organization that it's just beyond. It's beyond. Well, it's not, I guess that's a media company, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I'm thinking about it. And then also because we have PFPs, it's like, dude, like people can represent themselves with PFPs, so it's like, it adds that extra bonus, right? And then like also, it's like another thing I want to do is like also there's definitely going to be some of the NFTs in a vault for the community. And what I want to do with that is like, as we continue to grow the Parallax, like can we, like let's say somebody wants to be a content creator for the Parallax, then we, instead of them having to buy it as one of the rewards, is like they actually get a Parallax NFT, and then they can rock it as their PFP, and then they can start making content. So I mean, like, this is a crazy idea. I don't know if it will happen, but you know how right now when someone wants to be a content creator, the first thing they ask is, what platform should I choose? Right? Whether it's YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, whatever. What if in the future people said, what platform should I choose? Clone X, Parallax, Gojira.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like you're literally building on top of a platform and then also using the IP to kind of like get yourself up more quickly, right? And I think that is a possibility. I don't know if it will happen, but I'm thinking about those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something to think of. That's like really interesting, and I never really kind of like thought about that. And it kind of has to do a little bit, when they choose one of those, they choose that community as saying that I respect like the way that this community is and all that. So
Yeah.
it's definitely an interesting notion for sure.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like you know how like there's like all these restaurants with Bored Apes on it, right? So like when restaurant owners create a restaurant, they're like, which NFT should I use to help promote this restaurant? So like, what if it was the same thing, but like not just in restaurants, but like all aspects of any industry?
all right.
I mean, that's a possibility.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. And that's we want to get to that point, and that means that we are succeeding as an NFT space for sure when we're getting to
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And that's kind of
yeah,
like what
yeah.
we're trying to achieve. Someone was asking, what is your approach in selecting which founders that you interview and hold AMAs for? Like, how does your vetting process work, like for choosing that?
Honestly, honestly, all the people that I've done AMAs for, they hit me up. So it's like, how does it work? So it's pretty much someone will hit me up. And if I respect their project and I actually feel like I want to buy their project, or maybe I'm already a holder, then usually it's like we become friends first, and then if I feel like they're like a legitimate person, we do an interview. You know, so right now I only have about 4 interviews. Right, it's like Bushido from BF Party, Ray, Jjo, and Takoa. Um, and these all just came from organic relationships because we respected each other's work. And so yeah, so it's like it's not like a vetting process where I'm like I got to interview these guys. It's more like when you're in the space, you just connect with people over like Twitter DMs or Discord,
Right.
and then they're just like, "Yo, like, can I get on the Parallax? Can we do an interview?" And I'm like, "All right, sure." Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no like, pretty much there's no transaction when that happens. When
Yeah.
I do an interview, I do it for free.
Yeah.
And I've learned, and there are other people that came in and I charged them, and then they didn't really want to do it, and I've learned that actually for the interviews, I'm probably just going to be doing it for free because I think the people I interview should be people I genuinely want to talk to, whether there's compensation or not.
Yeah.
And I also feel like it just turns out so much better when there's no transaction. And maybe one day, down the line we can do something right, but like I feel like there's no need. And so yeah, that's how I do it.
I do have to ask one thing because I mean it's obvious when I'm looking at these, these are all super hyped up projects. Would you ever be willing, using your platform to do something, to promote projects that are new, unique, and like trying to push the space? Like I'm helping out with a project called Superfest, and I
Yeah.
feel like you made a video one time like talking about music NFT projects, and I feel like those are kind of, potentially one of the next big things. And I'm a
Yeah,
huge
yeah,
music
yeah.
fan myself, and like I really want
Yeah.
those things to kind of succeed. Like, would you ever be willing to do something like to like promote some of those like projects like that? Because, that
Yeah.
you could like sometimes like the biggest problem is just the lack of reach, and some of these projects that
Mm-hmm.
are doing something really new, and they don't have like
Yeah.
it's not a
The
PFP
attention.
project, or it's not
Yeah.
like super
Yeah.
hyped up and all this stuff, then like amazing projects kind of fall to the wayside a little bit. Like, would you ever
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
willing to try to like do
Okay.
some stuff like that for projects to kind of like use your ability, like have a VC with them and talk to them and like vet that kind of stuff, and like that's kind of like, so like I'm the reason why I say it is because they were asking me like, and also this question goes for you, Zero Cool, as well, because sometimes with Gajira, there's like we like do a lot of collabs, and so most of the time people want AMAs. I can't do AMAs all the time, like
Yeah.
like I don't want Gajira to become just
Too
like an
many.
AMA hall, like 3 AMAs a day. Like, I'll talk all day, I don't give a shit about that, but like,
Yeah.
I don't want people to be like, oh, here we are in the AMA layer, like it's not Gajira
Yeah.
layer
Yeah. Yeah.
anymore, and so
Okay.
you don't want that. But so like, I
Hmm.
sometimes don't do like hyped up projects because I don't really like believe in them and I don't really care about them. And sometimes I'll choose another project that doesn't have that has like a couple thousand followers, but it's trying to like
Yeah.
push the boundaries and trying to do new and cool things. And that's the kind of stuff that like I feel like we need more of that, just to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
better the
Yeah.
NFT space,
Okay.
you know?
Okay. Let me share my perspective on that. Now, in the beginning, which, it's only recently that my YouTube really started popping off, but like
Yeah,
in the beginning, obviously you want the more hype projects because those are that's going to get the attention and the clicks, right? But
absolutely.
as we start to grow, things will actually change. So like for me, like I'm a little tired of seeing like poop in the
Yeah.
top 10 on OpenSea
Yeah,
volume.
no shit.
No offense or anything, but it's just a little tiring, right?
Yeah.
And I do believe that there are a lot of talented artists that just don't have the attention, and that if they did, they could probably do so much better, right? So that's why, I mean, going full circle, that's why it's so important for me to do this media company, because you're basically capturing attention, and whatever direction you want to point that attention, that's where people are going to look, right? And that's why it's important for a media company to shine the spotlight on people that have actually good work, but maybe just don't know how to do the marketing for it, or they don't have a good narrative quite yet. So that's something I definitely want to do as the Parallax grows. Right, I do want to support people who are coming up, smaller artists who may not understand the game of Twitter marketing and things like that, because it's a learning curve. Now, for the ones that I would want to support at this stage of where the Parallax is, they got to be good. You know what I mean? Like, it has to be something interesting that we can create a narrative around where people want to watch. It's not necessarily about how many followers you have on Twitter, but it's just, is it actually good, and is it actually something that we can talk about? And if it is, I'm open to it, right? And I think of it like if you ever watch like Joe Rogan, for example, he can have on a random psychology professor from this school that no one heard of, and it'll get like 3 million views, right? And it's because he has attention, he has trust, and then he knows that this person is interesting, and so he can direct the attention to this person, and then next thing you know, that person becomes famous and they write a book, right? And so that's how I kind of see where the Parallax is. It's like we build the trust, we get people on board, and then once we have more of a platform, which is essentially what we're trying to build, when these people with good ideas or good projects come in, we have an opportunity to help them out how we can. So that's how I think about helping out people that are a little bit unknown.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I hope it didn't come off as like a call out or something like that,
Oh, no, no,
because
no, it's
I
all good. I'm just
definitely wasn't like that. But it's just one of those things that I think about, because I always like my like it's like my heart goes out to some projects where I'm just like, these guys are killing it and they're doing something different, but like the space is just like so stuck in the cool, hyped up like PFP or this meta or that meta, and I'm just like, man, there's just needs to be like a meta where like projects that are just good projects with founders who care, who are building something new and unique, should succeed, And I know it's not that
yeah,
simple, but it's one of those things that I think about, and I always like kind of
yeah,
like trying to like promote people to like, like to like look out for those projects, and like sometimes like
yeah,
having you be on your like AMA and like you talk to them and like really promote them for sure, like, and that's what I've
yeah,
been trying to help out with projects like that. And that's why I bring
yeah.
up like
That's
the
great.
Superfest, because it's such an amazing project, has an insane team, and it's definitely something that's like pushing the boundaries of like what Web3 can really do. And so I'm sure there's
Mhm.
tons of projects out there, but that's just one that comes to mind immediately, and I just wanted to ask you about it. But we'll go through some more questions. Do you have any time restraints or anything like that? Because we're over an hour now,
Uh,
and I want to make sure I'm
yeah,
respectful of your time. And
yeah,
what
we can
time? Because it's like
go.
10 o'clock.
Yeah,
It's
but
past 10 o'clock there. So all
yeah, yeah. Let's go like 15 more minutes. We can do a couple more questions.
right, cool. Let's see. Let's see, some simple questions, maybe just to touch on, like the
Mhm.
specifics of like, the when does whitelist mint, like how much time, and if there's a price and like, dates and anything like that, like,
Okay, sure, sure, sure. So there isn't an official mint date yet, but I'm shooting for the end of June after NFT NYC. The price is to be determined, and that's pretty much what people know, right? And oh yeah, the entire collection of 777 most likely will be entirely whitelisted. They will be a public sale after, like a day after the whitelist mint, if anybody chooses not to mint their whitelist. But for the most part, I don't plan on, people fighting a gas war for, a whitelist spot because ideally there's no public whitelist spots.
yeah, I think that's probably smart, especially with the Genesis project.
Yeah, yeah, it's only 777 supply, so.
Yeah, it's nice and small. It's good. You find nice power. Let's see. I got someone that was asking about if you don't mind like sharing some of the difficulties you like faced along the way, like with building up your brand and building up
Mm.
Parallax as a whole, like just some of the things that you can think about.
Yeah, I would say the beginning was a little hard when it comes to like getting YouTube subs. Because like, the first few videos I put out, they literally got like 20 views. Like literally, like you spend a whole week on a video and get like 20 views. So the beginning was pretty hard. And I think I missed the wave of like if you started YouTube in like September, you would be at like, 50 to 100K subs by now just because the market was so much hotter, right? So I started when in like pretty much end of December, and that's when I had like zero, right? So it's kind of like, being first is a pretty big advantage. You can get a lot more attention just because you're the only competition in town. So that was a little bit of a struggle, but now it's a little different where the people that watch my content, they keep watching. And then I'm noticing that for other YouTube channels, their views are kind of falling off, even though they have like 10 times the amount of subs I do. And it's because of honesty and trust, honestly. So yeah, so it was a little bit of a grind in the beginning, but now that's working just fine. The other challenge is art is probably the hardest challenge of doing this project because yeah, I've never created an anime project before. I'm not necessarily like a drawing artist. I think of myself as a creative person. So it's like learning what good anime is definitely was a learning curve. And I remember like when I started it, I didn't know anything about what good anime was. I was just a fan like anybody else. What I did was I just booked a hotel for like 2 or 3 nights, and I was like, all right, this weekend I am going to learn what is good anime, and I just spent that weekend at that hotel learning about anime, and I figured it out. And then yeah, so that's really freaking hard, honestly. So and also like getting the art right is also very difficult, right? Like if you look at the art that we're putting out, I would say it's like pretty high quality relative to like some of the stuff that we've seen. And it's actually surprising to me because when I look at some of these anime projects who are doing like metaverse plays and they want to be an IP, right? Not even utility, but just like IP. It's surprising that their art is not that great because good art is actually not that expensive. The hard part is finding a creative director to put it together to make it something that hits.
Yeah.
And so it's like so I'm just surprised, dude. Like these brands, they'll be like trying to raise millions of dollars, and I'm like, dude, it's literally like Upwork art, literally. And it's just like, come on, dude. But yeah, so it was hard to do something real, to find an artist in Japan and stuff like that. But I think the work is paying off, and to anyone listening who's trying to copy me, good luck because you're gonna have to like put your soul into this and sacrifice so much to get it to that level if you don't have any experience doing this. So yeah, so those are some challenges.
Someone's asking about will Parallax also be a space for people who want to build in the Web3? Like, is that like we kind of touched a
Mm.
little bit on it, but like will like will could Parallax be since it's called the Parallax, it's not called Patrick Dang.
Yeah,
Like it could be like a branch, like we were alluding to before, like the Rich Dad Poor Dad, where like it has like branches and
yeah,
you could empower people and they can have people like work together
yeah,
and do
yeah,
all that kind
yeah.
of stuff. And when you have more
That's the
avenues like that, yeah, I mean that should be the end.
uh,
Go ahead.
honestly, that's a dream,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
if you could help people start their businesses and it's actually a success, and we vet that the founders have good intentions and they're not just trying to create a cash grab after a cash grab. I would totally do that. As long as the person doing it, I can trust them and they're going to give it their all. And it's okay to fail. I have to say that. Like, it's okay. You launch a project, you put your heart and soul into it, and it fails and it goes to zero. That's okay with me. But as long as your intentions are in the right place, I support it. So in the future, when we do have more attention, more of a bigger brand, and we have the skills of like how to market a project, right? Could we help people that maybe aren't as good on the marketing side? Absolutely. But I want to take my time with that because it's like, if you kind of look at projects that do support other projects in that capacity, a lot of times the projects they support aren't really that great. And they probably shouldn't be pushing it that hard, honestly. But it just is what it is, right? And so I want to make sure that the projects that we put out are something that I would be proud of?
Yeah, absolutely. Someone's asking, have you weighed whether NFT or tokens would serve your direction better? Just curious, and why did you decide to do an NFT?
NFT because it's the culture, like there's not, I can't even name one popular media channel that has a token that's interesting. I kind of am aware of them, but I forgot what the name was, and it's like I don't remember it. It's nothing interesting, and the token is like going down hard anyway. So it's like, yeah. So NFT, you definitely get the PFP, you get the culture, you get the anime side, and there's a lot of benefits to doing anime, like we mentioned in the beginning. So yeah. And then the other question of like tokens, of like doing a token, was that a question?
Yes, it
Oh
was
yeah. So
why you chose one
yeah,
or the other. Yeah.
oh, why one of the, yeah, I thought because the NFT is so much cooler.
Yeah.
So, honestly, it's just so much more culture and tokens. Like for me, I'm not really that big in alternative coins. Like I know like Ethereum, Solana. I know all of them, but like it's not like I look at it every day. But I look at NFTs every day, right? And for me, I'm just more passionate about NFTs, even though the market's much smaller than alternative coins, because it's more of a passion and interest. It's not necessarily about just making money. So that's why I look at it like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Great answer. Someone had a question that I like this because I know that like collaborations is like basically a shortened version of whitelist trading, like
Hmm.
exchange, I guess is a better way of saying it. And I kind of like
Hmm.
don't necessarily like that. And I really like the whole idea of like working together to do
Hmm.
bigger and better things, like your Parallax can do one thing, but if your Parallax works like in as allies with like Gajira, we can do even bigger
Yeah.
things. So they were
Yeah.
asking, is there any did you guys have any ideas for long-term partnerships that could be possibly like, kind of like alliances where you guys like are doing exactly what I was just saying?
Yeah. I mean, like events is something that I really like going to, like I really like meeting people in person and like chopping it up because it's just so different, right? So like events is definitely something that I'm looking into. And I saw you guys did one with Few, which was amazing. So I don't know, maybe we can talk after this and see what events we can do, right?
Yeah, we should do something. Come on to Singapore that on that for our trip.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I'm thinking about it actually. So yeah, so like events is one thing. It's hard to say. I don't have all the answers, right? Because it's like I don't want to say like creating more NFTs because because I think people are kind of tired of an NFT that creates more NFTs that creates more NFTs. So I don't have like the like the a totally like great answer for that, but it's definitely something I'm thinking about and I'm watching to see what's working in the market. So I think that's something that we as a space have to innovate on.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, like you just like slide in the DM with someone or someone, you bump into someone you like see eye to eye, then all of a sudden it sparks something. That's kind of the beautiful thing in the space. Like things just are ever evolving. And one thing I always like harp on with projects, and I'm like saying that being perfect is not what you should be trying to achieve because in this NFT
Yeah,
space anything can happen, but being able to
yeah,
adapt to like with the given circumstances of like the NFT space,
yeah,
that is the most important skill as a
yeah,
project founder. And if you can like a project like for instance the Discord can hacked, how do you adapt
yeah,
to like work around that to get back on track? Like that is what shapes your of your project more so than what oh they got hacked, oh screw that, no they're terrible bad people. That's not true. Bad things happen to good people all the time, but like
mm,
adaptation is like the biggest skill in my honest opinion. So
yeah. No,
um
I hear you. I hear you. I see a question from Reliq, Reliiq. It's pretty funny. So he said, please tell me what happened to Carrefour. You've been covering it before and it's early. Okay, fair enough. I did cover Carrefour quite a bit in my YouTube channel, right? So I'll say this, like, I met the Carrefour team like in person and stuff. Like, so I consider them friends, right? But I'll still be honest with you guys of like what I think, and I'm also honest with them because I literally tell them what I'm going to tell you. I feel like for Carrefour, the issue really is the narrative of I think what they're building for the long term, it does make sense, and I think the business side on the back end, nothing has actually changed. What has changed is that people's perception of the founder's competency and trust has changed a lot. And I think the first thing that snowballed it was the supply being really high for the 3D car through, and it's not like totally minting out. And then the floor price is like below the mint price. So that was like the first step, right? But it's like, okay, like, maybe we can keep it going. And I think what really like kind of helped people lose confidence is the communication side of like how maybe J. Joe and some of the leaders were communicating to the holders and building the confidence of why they should hold, and it wasn't that great. And it's not public. It's like public knowledge that like some of the things that were said just weren't the best things that could have been said. You know what I mean? And I think because of that, people kind of dipped out because of that. And a lot of times when you're speculating on an NFT and you're holding it, you're kind of hoping that in the future it becomes something. But if you don't resonate with the leadership style, then it's you're right to sell because it's your money, right? And I think that's kind of what happened. And so in general, I think they can work on their communications more. I've actually told them that, and we'll just have to see what happens. And again, it's like I'm not financially involved in Carrefour at all. I don't own anything in Carrefour, like percentage wise. I do have a Carrefour, a Genesis. I have a couple 3D ones, right? So I'm holding the bag with you guys. But they're my friends, so I'll hold it anyways. But yeah, so that's what I think about that.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, shit. Yeah, I didn't even think that you even had to like touch on that if you didn't want to, but you went
Yeah,
ahead
it's all right.
anyways.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, people are curious, right? Because like I would be curious too if I had a Carrefour and it's like, went from 2.2 to 0.6. Like that's like kind of a big jump.
Yeah, no, for
So,
sure, for
but it's
sure.
all good. It's all good. But then again, it's like honesty is important in this space, right? So as long as we can talk about it, be real with each other, and like learn from it, that's the most important. Like NFTs will go up and down, but like intention is yeah, it's all about your intention.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you're saying, is like sometimes failure, like you were touching on this earlier, like sometimes failure, people think it's like the end of the road. It's actually like if you look at it as the beginning of the road, it's like a completely different like way of looking at it. Because like failures is like they're learning opportunities, and like you
Yeah,
learn
yeah,
more from your failures than you do from your like when you succeed. Honestly, as funny as that might
yeah,
sound, it's not saying that it's not more beneficial one or the other, but like if you take those failures and you learn something from it, then did you actually truly fail? It's actually just the beginning of the next chapter of like what you're doing with that.
yeah.
So
And even as like a person like investing in NFTs, right? I remember I was talking to this guy who's like pretty big in the VC crypto world, and he said he's like, yeah, so we invested X amount of millions in this guy because he had this credible background, and he just ran away with the money. And then I was like, oh shoot, like millions, all right? And I was like, well, how do you feel about that? He's like, well, it's my fault because I'm the one that gave him the money and I didn't read the situation right. Right. And so even if someone, his situation is like literally losing millions of dollars, not because the business failed, but the guy just ran away with the money, he still takes responsibility and says it's his fault. Right. So like the thing I've learned in NFTs is, sometimes things go up, sometimes things go down, but like no matter what happens, understand, nobody forced you to buy an NFT, right? Nobody forced you to click your MetaMask and like purchase. So you always take responsibility no matter what happens. Even if, in my opinion, even if someone straight up lied to your face, they said they were going to do this and that, and you gave them the money and they didn't do it, it's still your fault, in my opinion. Because people might disagree with that, but like, you should always take responsibility because that's how you grow and mature the most as a person, and you also feel more at ease. So I mean that's just like a personal like philosophy thing, but not everyone has to agree with that.
yeah, no, for sure. One thing I'm gonna ask, I mean, I think this is probably like the last thing, and you'll probably have to
Sure, sure,
get the
sure.
hell out of here. I might
Yeah,
have
yeah.
forgotten some questions. There's a lot of talk going and everything like that. But we didn't really touch on like the team at all. Because I know
Oh,
you're
okay.
doing
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
all by yourself, and I'm sure that
Yeah, impossible.
you've
Yeah.
empowered. I feel like you're one of those guys who doesn't, not hire from outside. You've hired from within, and that's what Gajira did. Like the whole core team is made up of, and all the people that work here
Yeah.
wasn't like scouted out. They were all came from the community, and that's like how you get people who, are doing this
Yeah.
because they're passionate versus being like, hey, I hire you, so I'm gonna pay you money. That person's coming in because they're getting paid money. The people here and
Yeah.
like do it because they're passionate and care about the
hmm
project.
Yeah, yeah. Let me share that a little bit. So there's kind of like two branches of our team. The first one is content, and the other one is more on the NFT side. So with content, we have four full-time people. That's going to be two editors, one marketer, and one designer. And then they're all based in Vietnam with me. So we all go into the office every day and see each other, and we make this content. And like the room that I film my videos in, that's literally our office. And then for the more Web3 NFT side, we have right now we currently have three people on the moderation team. But like, I mean, mod is a very general word, right? But it's like we have community management, which is Shaka, and like Sumo does like the alpha calling and the analysis, and then we just got Leroy, who is also helping with the community side as well. And all of them, when on the NFT side, were we kind of just hired them because they were active in our Discord, and then I was like, "Yo, we need some help with the mod stuff," and then of course they would love to be a part of it. And but yeah, I definitely like the idea, like how Gajira did as well. It's like you kind of hire within your community because those are the people that are most passionate. So yeah, that's how we did it.
Awesome. That's good to hear for sure. And if there's anything else you kind of want to touch on before we kind of wrap this up, I know that we'll try to get you out of here, but my AMAs always
Yeah,
last a long time.
yeah, all good, all good. Okay, so the last thing I'll leave you guys with is like, um, if you are considering, if you're listening to this, obviously you're considering something, right? And you're probably considering whether or not you should purchase the Parallax NFT. I'll say this: it's like the NFT is not for everybody, right? So I think you got to really reflect on what you look for in a project, what kind of community you want in the project, and the only way to really know is really just go on our Discord and participate and see if you like the people, right? Because for what we're doing, because we have low supply, we don't need everyone to buy. We just don't need the numbers, right? We just need the people that are a right fit. And I always feel like in the NFT space, a lot of times people try to FOMO you into paying for something probably higher price than it should be, because they want to capture the revenue, and I get it. But from the way I think about it is like I'm literally just looking for the right fit, and if it's a good fit for me, that you're going to be a good member of the community, great. And if it's a good fit for you, that all the things that you want out of an NFT, we can provide it for you, then it might be a good fit, right? But if not, it's totally okay. It's completely your choice. So again, it's like I'm not trying to push anything. I'm just really trying to educate you guys and share as much knowledge as possible as I learned this. And even if you don't, purchase an NFT, which is totally fine, just know that the content always is always going to be for free. We're still expanding that, and I'm always going to put my best stuff out for free, anyways. So if you just enjoy the content, just understand that there's no need to pay for it.
Good stuff, man. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you come out, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone from the Gajira family that we appreciate you cutting out time to come and educate us, and being able to give us some whitelist spots. I know that you don't have a lot, especially with the Genesis project. So
Yeah.
the majority, I'll be
Hey.
honest, like a majority of those spots went out to people in the crowd because I want to reward people for coming out and like trying to educate themselves. A lot of people just they enter a bunch of whitelist giveaways, click, 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 click. Okay, let's see, when's it minting? Okay, okay, okay. I want people to actually come out here and like show some initiative to like learn and educate, because this is definitely something that's really interesting, and you're definitely putting out some really good content, and you're really trying to better the space. And I think that people deserve to be rewarded for coming out and spreading the love.
Yeah.
So thank you so much,
Yeah.
Patrick. We'll have to talk soon, for sure.
Sure.
Do a little
Sure.
VC. I think that you and I are very see the space like on the same wavelength, and we see eye to eye with a lot of things. So I think that there's some cool things that
Mhm.
we could do in the future, and
Oh, definitely.
all that good stuff, brother. Thanks
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. All right, thank you guys. I'm looking forward to meeting you all. Maybe we do like some kind of event together in the future. But yeah, I support the Gojira family, and talk to you guys soon.
Check the voice chat. Everyone's sending their love and thanking you and
Yeah,
appreciating you.
yes,
So
yeah. I see them. I see them. Yeah,
alrighty,
appreciate it, guys. All right,
awesome,
I'm
man.
out,
We'll talk
guys.
soon. Laters.
Yeah, peace.